Hello! It's time for another studio catch-up. I'm Becky Tregear. Welcome to my channel if you're new, and welcome back if you're a regular viewer. I hope you're well out there and having a great day. So it's September 2023, and I just thought I'd do a little catch-up today and check in for the month. I've got a few little projects which I'm going to do in this video, which will be down on the desk, but I thought I'd do a bit of face-to-face, which is usually about once a month that I do that. So, what's been going on? Not much really. It's been pretty quiet, although I have been a little bit stressed out filming, especially that Teddy Blake handbag video that I just posted recently. That was so hard to do, and I was kind of regretting having accepted the bag, because then I was going, oh no, what am I going to film that's actually relevant to art? It took me a while to come up with that whole concept, but I got there eventually. I'm a little bit over reviewing company products, so I'm kind of taking a break indefinitely on receiving products. It's like they need to take priority, of course, because someone's sending me an item for free, and so I feel obligated to film it as soon as possible. But it kind of takes away from all the other things that I want to do, which then have to go on the back burner, and sometimes I don't get to them. So I'm just going to make some time for myself in the next few months, probably until the end of this year at least, and just do what I feel like doing and not be beholden to any company to have to do a review. It's really hard to say no to free stuff though. I mean, that handbag was just so nice I couldn't resist it. It's gotten quite warm in the last few days. We had some really cold weather, and now it's in the mid to highish 20s Celsius after being about 11 degrees the other day. It's such a big difference. Spring is definitely my favourite month, when things are warming up and before it gets too hot. I've also been out with my camera quite a bit, and I've been taking photos of blossoms because they've all been blooming in the last few weeks. I've been having a really good time just getting back into photography, and I've kind of rekindled my love for it, especially with this Leica camera that I'm filming on at the moment, so I can't show you it. It's such a great camera. It's really light and easy to use. The images are so crisp, and it's just overall high quality. So I thought I'd show you some of the photos that I've taken in all different weather. So some of them was when it was drizzly, and then other days I've had nice sun with blue skies. So it's fun to get all of these totally different photos with different lighting, different colour, and yeah, I'm pretty pleased with the shots that I've gotten this year. So I'll just show you some of those now. This is my favourite cherry tree at the Dandenong Botanic Gardens. It has such beautiful pink blossoms, and I spent quite a lot of time here underneath the tree taking some close-up images. The weather wasn't very good this day. It had started to drizzle, but I tried to get as many pictures as I could. The magnolia are just spectacular this year. The colour of them is stunning, and the Dandenong Gardens has loads of different varieties, so I took lots of photos over a couple of trips. This one, of course, was in my sketchbook. Other cherry blossom trees were also starting to bloom, and I love how moody this particular photo looks with the crappy weather. There are heaps of rhododendron flowers out as well. This one was particularly gorgeous in the sun, and I'm just showing you a few of the many photos I took. There are Australian natives as well, like this Banksia, and of course good old daffodils. I also walked around my local neighbourhood taking photos of pretty flowers that were shining in the sunlight. Couldn't tell you what those ones are. Beautiful yellow Australian wattles are all out as well, and a few streets over is my favourite cherry blossom tree. It is so gorgeous, and I love its two-tone flowers. Some are white and some are pink like this. And around the corner is this much darker pink blossom tree, and another pretty flower in the sunlight. And last up are some photos from the crabapple tree that's in our front yard. It is so beautiful at this time of year. For around 2 weeks in September, it is just full of all these really pretty flowers, and I just love it so much. I even managed to photograph a bee in one of them. So there have also been quite a lot of kookaburra around, and I thought I'd throw in a couple of pictures that I took of them because they're always so cute and fluffy. I mean, look at it. This one's my favourite. So I've taken a lot of photos and gotten inspiration from it. I haven't actually done a lot of art, although I have done a few paintings, as you've seen in previous videos, especially starting out in my new sketchbook. Remember that front page that I did, if you've seen that video. If not, here it is. So upcoming plans, I haven't got a huge amount organised at the moment, but like I said, I'm just kind of going to chill out a bit and just do some easy to film videos. I have no idea what I'm doing next, actually. I do have ideas, but it's just in which order I want to do them. I still have some art supplies that I want to review, which I've bought over the last year or so and have been sitting there waiting to be reviewed, so I'll see what I can come up with. And as for October, I have had one or two people ask me if I'm going to do Inktober. No way. I am so not going to stress myself out for a whole month doing a daily challenge. I've done them before and it gets really exhausting by the end of the month. I know there's a whole bunch of them. I mean, I might take inspiration from some of the prompt words, but I really don't have any plans to do any challenges in October. My mum is also coming over from New Zealand in October for, I think, around 3 weeks, and so I won't be able to film as much as I normally would. I'm going to have to take some time off around then, and I'm hoping to film enough videos beforehand so I can have at least one video a week, but we'll see. I'm not going to stress myself out if I have to work a few days while Mum's here. I'm sure she'll understand, but I'll work around it and figure it out as we go along. So I'm looking forward to seeing her, and we have a few activities planned, like a few different events to go to, which I'm hoping to get tickets for. Oh yeah, and that's the other thing that we're going to in early October is Ghost, which is a metal band. I have actually seen them before in 2019. They were excellent. This concert's actually the first one that we're going to after the pandemic, so it's going to be Ghost again, but they announced a full tour and I just really wanted to go, so we have tickets for that. We are in the seated area. I refuse to be in the pit down the bottom. I'm way too old and anxious to be stuck in a huge crowd of people, so we'll be sitting a bit further back, but I much prefer that, and I'm really excited to go. So now I'm going to do a few little projects. I've already filmed them, but I'll do a bit of a voiceover and explain what I'm doing. Just a few things that I wanted to catch up on and do, which I've been looking at for a while, and I'm finally getting around to it. So let's move on down to the desk. First up is this cardboard box, which we found at a Crafty stash sale. Someone just wanted to get rid of it, and it came with all of the stuff inside for $5 whole. It was quite a bargain. I didn't realise how much stuff was in it until we got home and I actually sifted through everything. There are some really pretty metal pieces, some little cameos, all sorts of things for crafting and adding as embellishments onto things. Some of the silver pieces are really beautiful, and to buy those individually would end up costing a whole lot more than $5, that's for sure. I think some of them, like that owl, are jewellery pieces, so you can put a necklace chain through them and wear it as a piece of jewellery. But over the years I've collected quite a lot of metal bits and pieces like this, and I have them all shoved in a drawer which has gotten far too full of stuff and I just can't see anything. So I thought it would be really fun to use this box and add all of my existing metal pieces to the ones that are in here, putting them in the different compartments so that I could just open it and find things a lot more easily. I mean, you can see in this particular one there's lots of brass pieces, and it's still going to be a big pile of stuff like that, but it's still much easier to rummage through one little compartment rather than a whole drawer. I also found these at a separate D-stash sale, and I paid a few dollars for everything. I think this heart-shaped frame might actually be broken, but I figured I could probably use it in something. Maybe I'll figure out how to open it, but I couldn't work it out there, so we'll just put it to one side. I also found some more shinies, and just all sorts of interesting metal bits and pieces which may work well on some kind of 3D steampunk kind of thing in the future. I have no idea. I just like to collect these things and then find a use for them at some stage in my career. I think I must have been a bird in a former life because I sure do like a shiny object. But here are all of the little pieces that I got. Some of them are really cute. Some of them look expensive too, but here is the drawer that I have. You could just see it is just so full of junk, and I really need to go through it, sort it out, and pull some of these bits and pieces out into that box. Not everything, but some of it for sure. So first thing I did was pull everything out of this box, because the compartments were quite grubby and there was a bunch of stuff in there that I didn't want to put back in the box. Little diamantes and scrappy bits of paper, things that I did not throw away, but I'm going to just put somewhere else. I really just want to have metal things in this box. I think those two things were keyhole plates or something. I didn't end up putting those back in either. I think I left them out. But anyway, here's all the other junk that was in there, and I'm just sticking it in this little box to deal with at a later time because I really don't know what to do with it. I actually did use a couple of pieces in my art journal already. That's quite good, but the rest of it, I don't know. It's probably just gonna get chucked out eventually, but I might find uses for it. Oh, those little sequins, they would not come out of the box, and some of them were stuck under the divider. I had muck everywhere, but now I've cleaned it all out and it's looking a bit better, if somewhat scuffed. But first I want to start off with this lid. The pattern's okay, but I thought I could come up with something better, so I'm going to paint over the top with black primer, just covering everything with a couple of coats, because you can see that first coat is not doing very well. The cardboard was very slick and the paint was just skating off it, but I didn't try to sand it or anything. I was much too lazy for that. I'll just lay a coat on. Once it dries, the second coat will go on much more easily. And I only painted the top part of the box. I didn't worry about the bottom bit. Here's that second coat going on now. It's looking a lot better, although actually it doesn't really matter that much anyway because I'm going to cover most of it with something. You'll see that shortly, but I just wanted to start with a solid base layer. And here it is, looking a bit patchy still, but I'm about to cover it anyway. There was also a little bit at the back that needed to be glued down, as you can probably see there. I'll deal with that later. But my plan was to use up some of my scrapbooking paper. I've got this whole paper pad that I've had for quite a few years. I've never used any of it, and I found this really lovely butterfly design, which I think will give the box a nice vintage look. I cut it down perfectly this time, and I'm going to just do a little bit of stamping around the edge. I've got this spongy dauber thing, and what this does is eliminate that white edge around the paper and give it just a slightly black frame, just to make it look a little bit more vintage. Can you tell I've been watching YouTube videos on this subject? But it's a good little technique, and you can use a makeup sponge. It doesn't have to be a Ranger dauber. I just happened to see that on special at that D-stash as well, and I knew it would come in handy. So this is what the edge looks like around the paper. You can just see that slight black frame, which gives it a little more interest and blends into the box. So now I've got to stick it on. I'm using glue tape. Double-sided tape would work just as well, and just sticking little bits around the edge of the paper and also in the middle. If I used wet glue, it would probably make the paper wrinkle, and I really didn't want that, whereas the glue tape's dry and so the paper will stay nice and flat. I managed to get it on there actually correctly. I thought I'd messed it up, but no, it's looking pretty perfect with just a slight black border around the edge from the box. Now I'm just adding a bit of PVA glue into that little bit that's sticking out because it was annoying me. I had to sit it upright until it dried. I had this little piece of paper left over, so I thought I'd decorate the front part as well, and I'm just using that same sponging technique for these little bits to make it all match. I had painstakingly measured the paper before I cut it out, so I think it's pretty much bang on. I also wanted to get rid of the little white tag in the silver holder because it was really stark and standing out, so I've got this tiny piece of paper that I'm going to put in there. And yeah, it's come out really well, I think. Look, that fits in perfectly. Hooray! So I'll just use the glue tape to stick this bit on, and then that's pretty much all I did with the outer cover. I decided to leave the rest of the sides black because it doesn't all need to be covered. I might change my mind down the track and put more paper on, but I just think the simplicity of the front part and the top part is enough, and I really like this design. I think it looks much better than the black and white version. And opening the box, I freshened up the inside with some black paint as well, and now I've arranged all of my metal objects, including the ones in the drawer, into these little compartments. I'm so happy with how this has turned out, and now I have all of my metal pieces together. It is up on one of my chests of drawers, and I've got it here for now. I do have to rearrange a few things. At the back there are some items to be made over, but for now I think this is sitting in a good spot, and it matches this one which I made over ages ago as well. And now for my next project, decorating the September card from that Greyby calendar. And I'm drawing in just some very sketchy looking cherry blossoms from one of my photos from that first pink weeping cherry tree. I started off with a watercolour pencil and I'll eventually go in with watercolour paints, but I wanted to draw with the pencil first to get it kind of right. And yes, I know for the majority of my audience that it is autumn for you guys, but it is spring down here and I just want to share my experiences living in the Southern Hemisphere. I'm just firstly painting out the pencil with some water, and it was looking a bit sad here, so this is when I decided to use some watercolours. I'm using Holbein paints because they have a brilliant pink colour which is perfect for these. I also mixed in some other colours for the stems, and it's a pretty simple picture, but I don't mind how it turned out. Some of the flowers are a little bit inaccurate, but I think they mostly look like cherry blossoms. I don't know, I've been a little bit off my painting game lately, like it's been quite a struggle to get things done. I think it is because I have been feeling a bit stressed out with making videos lately, because I've made ones from companies that have sent me things, as I mentioned before, and I find that it does take a toll on my creativity. I find that the same thing happens with commissions, which is why I don't go out of my way to do them. I've done one or two here and there, but for the most part I just find them to be a real chore, and I had the same thing with photography when I was doing family portraits. It ended up being exactly the same way. So I want to focus more on things that bring me creative joy rather than doing stuff out of a sense of duty, if that makes sense. I'm blathering on. I was adding some white ink highlights to this little painting and I'm just about done. I like how the background came out actually. I like that sort of splashy green colour. I like the spring feeling that this painting has. One last project for today. I found this cardboard tray. I don't know where it came from. It was packaging for something, but it fits my pens and brushes quite nicely when I'm just putting things on my desk so that they can't roll around everywhere. But it's pretty ugly, so I thought I might decorate this. I've got this pretty piece of scrapbook paper and I figured this would be fun to use, especially that line of butterflies, and I would put that on the inside. I've also got some purple acrylic paint because I thought I would paint the whole thing first just to seal it and make sure that it becomes somewhat waterproof, because I'm bound to get water in it at some stage. The colour's actually a bit too dark, I think, and maybe it would have stood out better if I'd painted the box white first, but I just couldn't be bothered. I just wanted to paint it and get it done. I managed to get paint all over that wooden backdrop as well, and my hands too. I haven't had a productive day unless I end up with paint all over myself by the end of it. But I thought this colour would match quite nicely with the purples in the piece of paper as well, so I just worked around it. The paint dried pretty quickly, being acrylic, and it was also a fairly dry day. I was thinking as I was decorating this that the supplies I'm using are worth more than this little piece of cardboard, which I could have just chucked in the recycling bin. But that's not the point. It's more about making something that I was wanting to do, and I just like sticking paper onto things, especially with this little glue tape. It's so much fun to use, and I have to say that that piece of paper fits in there perfectly. I'm so happy with my measurements on that. The edges of the cardboard were looking a bit yucky though, so I'm using a silver pen to try and decorate it, but of course the pen wasn't sinking into the inner part of the cardboard, so it still looks pretty raggedy. I did come up with another solution for this in a little while. I mean, I really could have just left it alone at this point, but the dark purple on the bottom of the box was picking up dusty bits, so I decided to stick another piece of paper on the bottom of it, even though no one will really see it because it's sitting on a desk, but I know it's there, and now you do as well, and it looks just really pretty. I love this piece of paper. I have to get more of it if I can find it. There is one more duplicate sheet in the book, so I'm not totally out of it yet, but I used some silver liquid pearls, which is like a really thick acrylic paint, to go around the edges, and this just kind of sealed the top in, making it look a lot better, although it's still really wobbly from the cardboard itself. So honestly, I could have just gone out and bought a tray, but why do that when I could spend heaps on art supplies and make it? It's the whole making and creating bit which is the important part. And I do enjoy giving ugly or useless items a nice makeover and making them look pretty. I've done it with plenty of other things, and as you saw a little bit earlier, I have found some other items in charity shops which I'm going to give a makeover at some point. I think actually this is where I should have left well enough alone, but I decided that this little piece of paper needed to be edged with the silver as well. I don't know that it particularly needed this. It actually looks quite good like this, but I kind of might have wrecked it a little bit, as we'll see very soon. because I was thinking to myself that if I'm going to put wet brushes in here, that's really going to damage this lovely paper in short order, and then I'm going to have to chuck the whole thing out anyway. So I was trying to figure out what I could do. And my genius solution is to use UV resin. I really should have used 2-part epoxy resin and let it dry overnight. The trouble with UV resin is it gets really hot when you put it under the UV light. But otherwise, it was a great idea because the resin doesn't make the paper warp when it's like this, whereas like a polyurethane acrylic coating would make the paper just buckle and warp. So to start off with, it looked really great. And this thick layer of resin is going to give it a nice waterproof surface to protect the paper. I think overall epoxy resin would have been a lot gentler, but no, I've got to use a UV light because I'm far too impatient, and I actually set it out in the sun for a few hours as well. But this is how it turned out. Because the resin heated up, it's kind of pulled away from the edges, and there are a few bits where the tape has come off underneath. Oh well, there's not much I can do about it. I think overall the box is quite nice, and it is going to be more useful for pencils and paintbrushes now. Ta-da! Well, that was a bit of fun. I do have some other objects that I've found either off the side of the road or in charity shops, and I want to give little makeovers to. I'm not sure when that's happening, but that's definitely on the list. I will see you all again in my next video. Here's a couple more if you want to check those out, and have a great day out there. I'll swatch you later. Bye!